You're listening to the Really Useful Podcast. This is the tech podcast for technophobes from macUsoft.com. This week we've got all the latest tech news that matters, tips and tricks to help you make better use of your tech, and even some recommendations from myself, Christian Cawley, and my co-host, Ben Stegner. How are you doing, Ben?
I'm doing fantastic, Christian. I'm back from a trip last week, so getting back into the swing of things and happy to be chatting with you.
That sounds great. And we are here recording this. We had a few problems, teething problems to get this one started, so I'm delighted to say that we are on the way with this podcast. I feel excited about it. And I'm excited about this. Microsoft, I don't know why I'm excited about it. Maybe it's because the impression Microsoft has finally seen the light. Microsoft really wants you to leave Windows 8.1 already. Starting from July 2022, the software giant will begin prodding 8.1 users to upgrade before the operating system's end of support date. I'm amazed that people are still using Windows 8.1, to be honest with you, in a world where Windows 10 exists, and Windows 10 seems to do pretty much what anyone needs an operating system to do.
Yeah, I totally agree. I remember when Windows 10 was newer and people were kind of scared about leaving Windows 7 to go to it because they love 7, so I get that. But I don't know why you would want to stay on 8.1 because it's just objectively worse than Windows 7 was for sure. So I imagine there won't be too many holdouts for that because I think they would be looking for any excuse to jump ship.
Absolutely. It's due to enter its end in January 2023. That's when it loses support from Microsoft. So you'll still be able to use it, but there'll be no more official patches, which means it then becomes a bit of a security risk to be using it. Stability risk as well. Then again, I mean, even up to 5 or 6 years ago, games, I mean, even now, in fact, there are games that are released that will run on Windows XP. So it's not to say that you have to stop using Windows 8.1. It's just that it's not a great idea to keep using Windows 8.1.
For several reasons, is that it's just kind of annoying. It's an annoying OS to use, and you'll be much happier with something modern. Just for fun, I looked up the market share of Windows versions. So Windows 8.1 as of May 2022 has about a 3% market share. Okay. And then above that, Windows 11 has about 10%, 7 has about 13%, and then Windows 10 is by far in the majority at about 72%. So yeah, Windows 8.1 is... Windows XP had at least 10 times as many people using it when it was gone than Windows 8 does now, and it's still...
read the Windows 7 one again, will you?
Windows 7 is 13%. 13%.
And Windows 11?
Windows 11 is at 10%. So
10%? Oh.
Yeah, I mean, a year after release, that's pretty bad.
Terrible. That is absolutely terrible. That is embarrassing. Good Lord. And they want everyone off Windows 8.1, so they'll go up to Windows 11, obviously.
I would be very curious. I don't know if they'll keep track of this, how many people leave 8.1 for 10 and how many people leave 8.1 for Windows 11.
Well, I think the upgrade path to Windows 10 is a lot easier on the hardware, isn't it, for Windows 8.1 to Windows 10?
Oh, actually, you're right. Yeah, people on 8.1 probably aren't going to be able to get to 11 because of the TPM requirement for the CPU. Yeah, you're right. So I guess it'll be Windows 10, and then we'll have the fun of Windows all over again, right? In a couple of years, you're going to have to jump ship from Windows 10, and then the fun begins all over again.
Yeah, we'll have figures like that Windows 7 one in 6 or 7 years' time.
Yep, and people won't want to leave Windows 10, and then Windows 13 will be out by that time.
They're never going to release a Windows 13. That's just asking for trouble, isn't it?
Windows 12?
Yeah, they can go for Windows 12, but they can't call the one after that Windows 13.
I guess that's true. There was iOS 13, though.
Yeah,
that did okay.
But then again, Apple doesn't have that problem of dodgy operating system releases.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. We'll move on. The Nothing Phone. Now, this is a cleverly named phone. The Nothing Phone bracket 1 bracket, or 1 in parentheses. It's not due to be released in the US. You know, it looks, on first glance, it looks just like it's just another slick-looking Android phone. And I had a look at it, and I was a bit dubious until I got into the videos. And then really, it's actually very cool what the Nothing phone does, because it has LEDs embedded in the rear, and they're in strange sort of shapes. And these LEDs can be used to provide various types of notifications, and these are all programmable notifications. Have you ever had that when you look at a phone and think, oh, it's just another phone, and then you find it does something absolutely mind-blowingly different?
I can't think of any phones in particular. I'm trying to think. I mean, my first smartphone that I've talked about before on the show was the Evo 3D. It had the 3D camera, which was more of a gimmick of the time than something really that different. But I do agree with you that it is really cool to see a phone that does something different, just because it feels like smartphones have become so standardized that, like, you see one phone, you've kind of get the idea of all of them. That it's cool just to say, oh, I've never seen that before. I'm the same way with video games. When I hear about an idea, it's like, oh, I've never heard about that before. It kind of piques your interest just because it's fresh in a sea of the same things. I like LED notifications though. That was a thing on older Android phones. Do you remember? They had like lights that would like pulse. It would be like green for a text or blue for an email or whatever. That was pretty common, and it just kind of faded away.
Oh no, but I like the approach that the Nothing people have are giving the Nothing phone with which has a stock-like version of Android branding as Nothing OS.
Sounds very nihilistic.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. I mean, on the matter of unique phones, I've just finished a review for macOS a couple of days ago, and I know that it is edited, but it hasn't been released yet, I don't think. I've reviewed a phone called the Blackview BL8800 Pro, which is a rugged phone. And that tends to be the most interesting things about Android phones at the moment is kind of ruggedization, or it has been ruggedization. Well, certainly for me, it's a choice between ruggedization or whether this phone has got a secret physical keyboard. Beyond that, phones all seem to be pretty much a muchness. I mean, I've the BL8800 Pro. There's the funny TikTok one with the watch face embedded in the back of the phone. There's the Doogee S95 Pro, which has like modular attachments, and then the Nokia XR20, which I'm using as my daily driver at the moment. They're all kind of rugged phones, and they're really the Nokia being a bit slimline and not as rugged as the others aside, they all tend to do pretty much the same thing. So it's really refreshing to see something like the Nothing phone, and I hope they do really well with it, because I think we need something a bit different in the mobile phone space, don't we?
I would agree. I'm trying to think of the last time I saw a phone that did something really fresh, and I guess it would be, I remember like 4 or 5 phones ago when I was looking at upgrading. I think it was one of the OnePlus phones. It had the fingerprint sensor in the screen, and that was a new thing at the time. I think that's more widespread now, but I feel like that was the last time I saw something and thought that was pretty like a fresh idea. Which of course at first it's kind of janky, like it sounds really cool, but it's not that great in practice, and they figure it out later on. But yeah, I can't think of any ones that really caught my eye other than like those minimalist phones that are designed to like keep you from looking at the screen all day. That's a separate category.
Totally. So that's coming along, but it isn't going to be released in the US, certainly not at first. It's the launch of the Nothing Phone 1 will focus on the United Kingdom and Europe. SpaceX's Starlink satellites are negatively impacting astronomers. Now, if you think about it, it makes perfect sense that this would happen, because Starlink is launching satellites in kind of constellationary arrangements in order to enable internet access in remote areas. So it makes sense that their orbit is going to get in the way of the the study of astronomy. At the point of our article going live on macOS earlier this month, there are 2,000 satellites in low Earth orbit. SpaceX has approval from the US Federal Communications Commission for a total of 40,000 satellites. You've all seen space photos. They require a slightly slower shutter speed, amongst other settings, and motion in space creates streaks. And so not only do the photographers have to contest with light pollution and the weather, they now have extra bodies in low Earth orbit to tackle. That 40,000 number, though, that's insane, isn't it?
That's a lot of satellites. I guess when you need internet for as many people and as much of the Earth as they want.
I mean, I live in a part of the world where it's very difficult to see the heavens. I live in a place that was very big on industry up until about 30 years ago. There's still a lot of industry here, but not as much as there was, and they're building towards more industry. And we have to drive sort of 20 miles into the North Yorkshire Moors to a nice place called Danby in order to get anything close to a sort of a light pollution-free sky. The night sky view from there is absolutely stunning.
I'm pretty sure there's an area not next to me, fairly close to me in the state. I think one of my cousins has an interest in astronomy and bought a telescope or something. And they went to that area and they said it was beautiful. Like, it's not super, super far. It's in a more rural area, obviously, but where my parents live is more out kind of in a rural area, so you can see the stars decently well there. I mean, not as well as you would in the middle of nowhere, but it's nice to have an area to do that where you don't feel like you're going to get jumped by a tiger or something.
Definitely. So there's more details about this on macOS.com, along with everything else that you'll hear us discuss in this show, in our show notes. Well, basically, there are tools that you can use to help you track Starlink satellites and then make your decision on when you're going to photograph the night sky and when the best time is going to be, when the worst time is going to be. But of course, the thing is that the presence of extra satellites means it's an extra element of things to consider when planning nighttime photography, on top of the weather and the light and any other bodies that might be in the way. Now you've got these extra satellites that are coming along. Starlink has done phenomenal work in helping people in Ukraine stay online throughout the invasion by Russia. But it's it does come with a cost, the march of technology. And when it kind of impedes on the natural world, which, the night sky is the natural world, it's a little bit disappointing, really.
Yeah, I kind of go back and forth on it. Like, on one hand, it's nice to have people be able to get online that wouldn't be able to otherwise, and that's a great thing. But on the other hand, adding pollution, I mean, I think people being online, if you look at it objectively, is probably more important than taking pictures of the night sky. But also, there's beauty to that, and it shouldn't ruin that for people, and it adds that hassle. So it's one of those things where there's every good thing has some bad drawbacks too. So it's a tough one.
Absolutely. Okay, we have some tips and tricks to help you make better use of the devices in front of you at the moment. And we're going to kick off with something that we, I suppose, criminally don't talk about an awful lot, which is macOS. And we've got this great list of the best macOS features everyone should use. It's really weird that we don't do macOS very often, because you use macOS, don't you?
Sometimes, yeah. So I used to be the Mac deputy editor at the site. I have a MacBook Air that I use when I'm on the road, or if I'm doing a Mac article, which isn't super, super often. So I wouldn't call myself a primary Mac user by any means, but I have access to it and know the basics. So I use it sometimes, and I sometimes write about it. So maybe I should be the one to add some more Mac into the mix here.
Yeah, well, maybe you should. So the 9 best macOS features everyone should use is a nice guide that's been compiled by Hashir Ibrahim from macOS.com. There are 9 items in this list, Ben. What do you think of them?
Well, I think they are all like really little handy things that I like. I love Windows because I'm so used to it, and it's just like I know just the muscle memory and keyboard shortcuts and stuff, but it is little things like this where when you use them and then you lose them on another OS that you get used to. One of my favorites on the list is Quick Look, which I like Quick Look so much on Mac that I found an app that replicates that on Windows. So that's on Mac when you're in your file explorer called Finder. If you hit the space bar, it'll pull up a preview of the file that you're looking at, so an image or a PDF or whatever. And it's so nice that I installed a Windows little app called, what's it called here? Oh, it's just called Quick Look. That does the same thing. It's just super nice when you want to check on a picture real quick and not have to worry about opening it and then closing your file, your image preview app rather. Otherwise, yeah, these are all some really useful tools. I mean, Spotlight Search is super handy. more or less about as good as search in Windows 10 and 11 is now. Command and space pulls up your search bar, and then you can just look for anything on your computer, whether it's an app or a file, or even just do like basic calculations, check a stock price, things like that. It's also on iPhone too. Spotlight search is similar, where it's just a very, very fast search where you're not waiting for stuff. Hot corners are nice too if you haven't used those. That lets you move your mouse to the corner of one of the four corners on your Mac, and then you can assign a control to it. So you could maybe show your desktop when you go to the top left corner, or show mission control for some shortcuts when you go to a different corner. So if you tend to use your mouse a lot and maybe don't want to use the keys for those are pretty nice too. And of course, there's a lot of great features between Mac and iPhone. So handoff is one of those. It lets you copy on one device and paste on another, or start an email on your phone and finish it on your Mac. Things like that make it really nice when you're all in on the Apple ecosystem.
Of the items in the list, which, as mentioned, you'll find in the show notes, which is your favorite, do you think? Or do you have a different favorite?
I'm trying to think. I like Lookup, but I like it on my phone. So I use an iPhone, as I've talked about before. So Lookup is nice because you can just press on a word and see what it means. But I'm slowly and casually in the process of trying to learn some Spanish. So it's really nice to be able to translate words on your phone by doing that. I think you can do the same on macOS too, where if you have a different language installed on your phone, you can press on it and then it'll translate or define it in either language. So it's nice to like read the definition in Spanish and try to learn some new words that way. I do think Quick Look is probably my favorite just because it's so simple yet convenient. Another one is the focus modes. We might have talked about that before for iPhone. So that expands the Do Not Disturb feature. So instead of just one Do Not Disturb option, now there's a bunch of them, and you can set up who's allowed to contact you and what apps are allowed to contact you in them. So you can set up one Do Not Disturb that's just nothing gets through. And then you can maybe set one up that's like work focus, where like Slack and email notifications get through, but like game notifications don't. So that's really handy too, because I do think like notifications, I think, are one of the biggest features that people need to take more control of, because they're designed to grab your attention. And when your attention's constantly being grabbed, it's how you waste time on your phone or computer. So I think features like this are really useful, and more people should take full advantage of them.
We're going to move on to Easter eggs in video games. What are they? How long have they been there? And what form do they take? Ben, you've taken another look at the topic of Easter eggs in video games, haven't you?
I have, yes. I do enjoy games as a whole, obviously, and Easter eggs are always fun little extras that they didn't have to put there, but they did. So Easter eggs in general, if you're not familiar, their name comes from the tradition of finding eggs on Easter. They're little bits of secret media that developers hide inside video games. They can also be in software and things like that. Even Google has some Easter eggs in Google search, but in this context, they're about games. So it's any sort of text, image, a little cutscene, a nod to another game or a different piece of media, anything like that can be an Easter egg. They're optional, they're hidden, you find them just for fun. They're not like a cheat or a bonus in the game. They're just like a little fun nod that doesn't really do anything other than make you smile for the most part. So Easter eggs started in the Atari 2600 game Adventure, which obviously being on the Atari system was very primitive. It was one of the first action-adventure games, so think a very, very basic like Zelda type of find the key and open the door type of game. The developer's name was Warren Robinett. At the time, Atari had a policy of not giving credit to its programmers because they didn't want other people or other companies to know who had worked on the game and then try to poach them for themselves. So through an obscure method that you would have to read a guide to know how to do, he embedded the text created by Warren Robinett into the game. So that was kind of the first generally accepted Easter egg in a game. So the article that you can read in the notes as we referenced includes a lot of little things. So like as a reference to another game, for an example, in Uncharted 3, there's a scene at the beginning of the game that takes place in a bar, and there's a newspaper on the bar that says scientists are still struggling to understand deadly fungus, and that's a reference to The Last of Us, which was the upcoming game at the time by Naughty Dog, who also made Uncharted. But the funny thing was that The Last of Us hadn't been announced yet, and they forgot to remove that reference, so it was kind of a spoiler, I guess, for their upcoming game, but it was so obscure, it was so general that no one really knew that was what that was. There's also silly Easter eggs too. So one of my favorite examples I reference a lot is in Crisis 2. There's a mission where you can open up an elevator that's just on the side of a hallway, and there's 2 enemy soldiers inside just dancing with a disco ball and music playing. Again, one of those things that's just no real purpose to it. It's just funny to find and makes you chuckle. And sometimes you get an achievement for finding them too.
Do you have a favorite Easter egg in anything that you've played?
Off the top of my head, that is tricky to pick just one. I like, when I was a kid, one of my favorite general Easter eggs was the developer room in the early Ratchet and Clank games. I think they called it the developer room. Insomniac Museum is what they called it. So Insomniac is the developer of Ratchet and Clank, and they hid a way to access like a special museum in every game, Ratchet and Clank game they made, and it had like cut content, it had enemies that weren't used, weapons that weren't used, stuff like that. And I love that it has the developers recording like what the enemy was supposed to be or why they got rid of it. I love stuff like that, just little extra details about the making of a game. So I do love things like that. And I guess too, in Banjo-Kazooie, there was a system called Stop and Swap, but that was more of something they were going to implement that was cut because of hardware issues. It wasn't really an Easter egg, but it kind of became like it's not an Easter egg, but it became like a big gaming topic. So that's okay. On the list too. But yeah,
I'm actually in an Easter egg.
You're in an Easter egg?
I'm in an Easter egg because I
right now as we record this.
If only I'll eat my way out. No, the Evercade Versus Founders Edition. Because I backed that, I got to put my name in to a list of names that would then be available to view on the system if you go to a particular screen.
Oh, that's pretty sweet. I like stuff like that with Kickstarters. Every time I back one, I always think about backing a higher tier and like getting to design an enemy or something, but they're usually so expensive, and unless I'm like 100% into the game, I just figure I'll just do the lower tier. I thought of one other. This is a pretty common one, but the Chris Houlihan room in Zelda: A Link to the Past. You know about that one?
I don't.
So basically, in Nintendo Power, back in the 90s, before the game came out, there was a competition to have. I remember exactly what the competition was for. It was something where a guy, I think he was like a challenge where he was like the best in some kind of demo disc or something Nintendo put out. And as his prize, he got to be put into Link to the Past. And there's like 4 or 5 different ways to access it, which are all like you'd never stumble upon them yourself. You'd have to know like you have to do this and this. And when you get to it, he says, "My name is Chris Houlihan. This is my top secret room. Keep it between us, okay?" And there's a bunch of money in there. But it's just so funny because like Nintendo would never, ever, ever do that now. So it's just like a product of its time. And it's just so cool to say like you had your name in a Zelda game. I just think it's a cool, and most people would never find it too. So back in the day, it was probably hidden until the internet was more prevalent and people could share secrets like that. It was I looked it up. Yeah, it was a Nintendo Power contest held in the fall of 1990, where the winner was going to get their name programmed into a future NES game. That's believed. It says the winner of the contest was never revealed by Nintendo, and there might not even be a real person named Chris Houlihan, according to the Zelda wiki. So I think I choose to believe that's what happened because it seems really cool, but who knows?
Interesting. Nintendo Power is still going as a podcast.
I think I knew that. I liked some of the authors from Nintendo Power way back in the day.
Nintendo Power podcast is hosted by former editor-in-chief of the original magazine, Chris Slate.
Yeah, I remember Chris Slate. I have never listened to that.
No,
I used to love Nintendo Power though. I remember enjoying reading it even when I wasn't really playing Nintendo games for a while. I just loved the way it was set up and the writers. It was a good time. I miss it. I still have the final issue and all the ones I had for a couple years.
Yeah, same here. Okay, let's move on. The 8 best places to sell your old smart home gadgets. Now, this is interesting because we do look at places that you can dispose of your tech. But we don't tend to focus on specific types of tech. And smart home gadgets are a little bit different because older smart home gear that's difficult to upgrade, it very often has some sort of inherent security weakness that you probably don't want connected up in your home. So it makes sense to get shot of it as easily as you can. So you have the obvious things like eBay and Facebook Marketplace to get rid of old gear. There's also the option of Swapper, which is a good option for mainly for phones, but there are other things that you can do there: smartwatches, computers, laptops, tablets, home tech. Best Buy has a trade-in program where you can return old smart home gadgets and trade in for newer hardware. Apple has a trade-in service, as does Amazon. I think the most interesting item in this list is Declutter, which is a great option if you want to sell your old smart home gadgets quickly and easily. You just enter the name of the gadget and Declutter will give you an instant valuation. Then if you're happy with it, they send you a shipping label and you can get rid of it quite quickly, and you get paid the next day via PayPal, direct deposit, or via check. Ben, have you got a bit of smart home tech clutter in your place up?
Not a whole lot. I have a second generation Echo Dot, and I have the Google Home Mini. I don't remember what generation it was. I think that's really all I have. I never really bought smart home stuff because I rent right now, so I can't like install a ton of stuff. So I have a slight interest in it, I guess. I don't know if I'd really buy a whole lot, but other than like a smart plug or two, I don't have too much. So I keep those around for the occasional article or update, but I don't have too much to offload. I don't think I'm sitting on millions or anything like that.
Yeah, same here. We don't like have a. I say we don't. I'm about to crack open a box full of stuff for a review for make use of, but at this moment in time, we don't have anything like that switched on. We got rid of the Amazon Echo Dot for privacy reasons. Because we were running out of tinfoil basically. So I thought, well, it's either reuse the tinfoil off someone's head or disconnect the Echo Dot. So that's
I see. That was probably a wise choice. I have thought about. I've had both of mine disconnected for years too. I don't think it's worth having it on for what I barely ever use it, and when I did, it was like set an alarm or whatever. I bought a new soundbar a month or two ago, which I think I shared before, and it has a specific jack for connecting like a smart home, like a Echo Dot or whatever. And I thought about buying an Apple HomePod Mini because I'm not that I'm like all in on Apple, but I am using more Apple products now. And I thought about it, and I'm like, I don't really like. What would I really use that for? Like asking quick questions. I can do that on my phone. And I don't have like so many smart home things where I'm turning my lights off and all that with it. So I think I'll stick with my low tech house for right now.
Yeah, I mean, I can do what I want with my house because, well, I can't do what I want. I'm not renting, put it that way. So, I have the ability to install what I need to install should I want to. But, I mean, at this stage, I'm kind of moving towards uninstalling things. For instance, I'm looking out at the house right now and there's a satellite dish on the wall and I'm thinking, when did we last receive pictures over satellite? We always use the internet. So that's coming off a wall at some point. And with it goes a load of unsightly cabling. So that's a win, isn't it?
It's the declutter movement.
It is.
Uninstall.
So yeah, if you've got some old smart home tech that you're not using anymore, you don't need it to act as a paperweight or waste space at the back of a drawer. You can turn it into cash and maybe put it towards a holiday or Christmas presents or new smart home tech. Which brings us to that point of the show where we give you a recommendation. It's a thought, it's an idea, and it's an experience of something that we've enjoyed that we want to share with you. Ben regularly recommends games, but I believe that this week it's something different.
That's right. I'm giving you a break from having to hear me talk about a game, so that's exciting. So this week I wanted to recommend Simple Note, which is a tool you may or may not have heard of, but true to its name, it is a really nice and easy note-taking app. So if you are not a huge fan of the note-taking app that came with your phone, or you're just looking for something different to use across devices, I would definitely recommend it. So basically, in a nutshell, Simple Note is made by the same people that make WordPress, so it comes from a trusted name. It's just a note-taking note-taking app that just works, basically. There's an app for every platform. It's fully free. There's no subscriptions or anything like that. And it all syncs together. So you make a change on one device, it updates everywhere else. You can pin notes to keep them at the top. If you want to use Markdown, which we've talked about before, you can use that to stylize your notes. It saves on its own. You can roll back your notes to previous versions, and you can also share your notes with other people. So if you want to share a grocery list or something like that, there's no ads, sharing is free, all that kind of thing. So it's really just a nice and simple note app. There's not a whole lot to say about it. I like it because I use Windows for my computer, I use an iPhone, and then I have a Mac too, like we said before. So it's nice to have one app that works across everything, where it's not like I'm pigeonholed into using Apple Notes on my phone and then I can't get to them on my computer. I hate stuff like that. So if you like taking notes and you need a better note-taking app, I would definitely check out Simple Note because it's just great. It's one of those apps I just enjoy without thinking too much about it because it just works.
Okay, well, I'm going to check that out for definite, because that sounds right up my street. My recommendation, I've got a game, and it's quite a recent game. It came out at the end of April on the Nintendo Switch. It's Nintendo Switch Sports. My twins celebrate their birthday today, so I thought, well, what better way than to get them a game that they've been after? And we haven't had a lot of time to play it, but, it's a birthday. You have to make time for a present like this on the birthday itself. So between school and going to their birthday party, we loaded up Nintendo Switch Sports and played one of the 6 games in there. Now, it comes with volleyball, badminton, bowling? That sounds disgusting. It comes with volleyball, badminton, bowling, football, shambara, and tennis. I think I'm saying it right. We played shambara. And it was me, the eldest 2, and their younger sibling, and we kind of just had a great fun playing shambara, and chopping each. There's no chopping, obviously, because you're basically playing with the Joy-Cons. There's no actual blade involved, but it's a great game.
Well, that's good. I was worried that you might have taken.
Yes, we had a barbecue, and I prepared the kebab course earlier. No. Yeah, Shambara is great fun. That's the only bit we got to play because we found ourselves just wanting to beat each other all the time. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's very much in the I suppose the vein of the old sports game on the Wii, but it's bang up to date, and it looks great and it plays great. It's really great fun. If you haven't got it already, I would recommend it.
When Switch party games come out, I think about getting them if my friends would enjoy them, because I have a couple sets of friends that I play with when I see them. I would probably go for a Mario sports game before this. I would probably get Mario Golf or the new Mario soccer football game, just because they're a little more wacky, I guess. Yeah, so I mean, Wii Sports was great for its time with the motion controls. I think it was a good game, but I don't think I would get too much out of this game. So probably not one that I'll pick up, but it's good to see the Wii Sports tradition being kept alive.
That brings us to the end of this week's really useful podcast. You can find us pretty much anywhere you find podcasts, but if you use Apple Podcasts, then if you leave us a review, that will help us to attract more listeners. You can also share the podcast in any social networks like Facebook, Twitter, whatever you use, really. And of course, you can contact us using the main website at makeuseof.com or via Twitter, as according to the show notes, or drop us a message on Facebook where you find this podcast shared on the Make Use Of account. This is a really useful podcast from makeuseof.com. I'm Christian Cawley, he's Ben Stegner, and we'll be along with a new show for you soon. Until then, it's goodbye.